Welcome back to the channel, guys. So in this episode, we're gonna put some beams back here. Actually, we're gonna start working on the 3-link suspension for this truck. And in order to do that, we're gonna start on the chassis side and put some bracing in here. There's gonna be a brace that goes across the bottom. The upper 3-link bracket, which is gonna be a bar up here, some supporting tubes and all sorts of fancy stuff. We're also gonna work on the lower 3-link mounts for the frame end of the truck. We're gonna get all that stitched in and welded in this episode. Just a update on the front suspension for you guys that are new or just catching on to the channel. We got the front cross member in, the support tubes are in, the nice Joe's Racing A-arm brackets are in, and then we got the front suspension pretty much mounted up. Need to put some spindles in it yet, but that's coming along. Once the spindles are here, it will get the tie rod ends put on, and then we'll start working on our sway bar setup up front here. But this episode specifically, rear suspension. Okay, so for this rear suspension, I'm going to run a relatively thin tube for my support tube. This is 1.25 inch 95 wall, which is pretty thin stuff, but that's going to be the lower support and the bracing tubes. For this upper tube up here, I'm still looking for a piece, but I think we're gonna run 1 5/8 120 wall for this upper tube because it has a fair amount of load. So we're gonna get that cut up for the lower tube now and then weld that in. All right, so let me show you my marking out process. I use a magnet to hold the tape measure where it needs to be and pull it tight. I have to fish it down through the clamps, which I did not give myself a lot of room to feed it through there, but it works. Then I mark it on the frame table because this is my reference. I use this plate to line up with the line I drew on both sides, obviously. Clamp this down. Now, this is a 1/2 inch thick piece of plate. I then clamp a piece of angle iron to the bottom of it so this surface is level with this surface. The bottom of the frame rail is 2 inches from this datum here. So I always know that. So I always use that as my reference point. The tube that we're going to do is 1 inch center line from the bottom. So we're gonna have to space the tube up so that it's in the proper location. But that's what we're gonna do next. I think I'm gonna use like 1, 2, 3 blocks and go from there. Okay, so I got the 1, 2, 3 blocks on here. That puts it 2.5 inches above the bottom, which means that I am 1/2 inch up onto the frame rail. With 1 1/4 inch tube sitting on that, that puts my center line at 1 1/8 high, so good enough. I'm gonna just adjust my linkage slightly. I don't feel like making exactly 1 inch, so that should work good. So let's get the tube in there. Okay, so on the hyperlapse, you saw me get that little scissor jack and that piece of pipe. This frame's ever so slightly pulled inward, probably, I don't know, maybe a 32nd of an inch. It was just enough that I couldn't get this tube in. So I just took that there, put it between the frame horns or the frame rails and sort of gave a little light spread, got this in, and then now I have this tube set on there nice and tight. So now it's in there, it doesn't actually want to go anywhere, so that's great. We'll go ahead and burn this in. All right, guys, so we have the cross tube welded in. Now we're gonna weld in some 45 braces. So we're gonna get these cut, getting my hole or my coping fixture set back up here. So we're gonna cut a 45-degree angle on this side, Then we're gonna run it through the bandsaw and cut a 45 degree and tack these all up. Okay guys, so what we got going on here, I got the tubes cut out and they're not for a 45 degree angle on both ends. One's a tube notch, one's a straight miter, and they fit up pretty nice. So we're gonna go ahead and get these stitched in. Then part of the design is that there's gonna be a crossbar here in front of them that ties into this link. So we're gonna tack them in. All right, so we got everything welded in here. It took a little bit, welded in there. Not the prettiest stuff in the world, but I mean, it's gonna hold. So, still learning how to weld on tubing upside down. I got everything melted in pretty good. I think the bottom of the tubes actually looks better in some cases than the tops of the tubes, which is sort of stupid because you should be able to weld better sitting upright, but I think it's good. So, the next thing we're gonna do here, we're going to lay a tube in right here and we're going to tie it to here. So one of the guys on the Facebook forum mentioned originally I was going to have tubes coming out right about here and right about there and tie it up into the frame, but they said make sure you're always intersecting these joints and splicing them in. So that's what we're going to do. This tube up here, you're going to say, well, that's kind of unnecessary to have that here, but where the cab sits on the truck, there's gonna be an outrigger that goes right along here, just shaped like that, and then kicks in. And where it kicks in, it lands on the opposite side here. So if it were to kick in, any forces from the cab rolling and twisting and all that weight on there is going to squeeze these tubes inward. And while they are strong, and we'll keep this tube, these diagonal tubes will keep the chassis from scissoring sort of back and forth like this, but they don't offer as much force right there from it collapsing inwards. This point here, this bar is supposed to support the bottom 3 links because if the truck gets traction on one wheel more than the other, it can drive the 3 link inwards and that will cause loading on the chassis there. So we're gonna basically square this whole thing out, rectangular it out rather, one here, one here. So let's get started on that. We're gonna get that tube cut and get it fitted in. Okay, so we got this tube all fitted up here, so it's gonna fit like this. It's actually, the miter starts all the way out of the tip, but the way it cuts, it looks like it's straight on the ends, but it's not. So fit looks great. There's a little bit of a gap there, but when we take the bevel out, you'll see that close up. Even still, it's good to go. So we're not gonna weld this up tonight. We're gonna call it a night, clean up the shop, and weld it next time. All right, excuse the noise. We got the fans running here on the plasma cutter. We got a piece of 3/16 plate. It's a nice thick plate up here on the plasma. We're gonna run some test pieces first. I got little 1-inch squares with a 5/8 inch hole, and we're gonna adjust some offsets in the G code for the CAM software so we can get this material dialed in and try to get it dimensionally accurate. I want to try to shoot for about 15 to 10 thousandths clearance on the pin, which is going to be 5/8 material. So we're gonna go up here in the top left corner and start poking some little test coupons out, and then get that dialed in, and then we'll get ready to cut the pieces. Okay, so it's the next day. We got stuff cut out for 2 sets of 3-link bracket. One of them I have sort of just laid up here with some 1, 2, 3 blocks, just sitting loose. But we're gonna get working on these, get them all cleaned up, the extras over here cleaned up, and we're gonna get, this is the lower 3-link bracket, this is half of the upper 3-link bracket. So this will be welded on that upper tube. You can see it's got the nice bend radius here where it's gonna be welded onto the top of the 1 5/8 chromoly. And so we're just gonna get these little sub-assemblies welded up, and then maybe if we're lucky, we'll get them welded on. Okay, so these burned in nice. I got these all done and they're cooling off. Next, I need to remount the holes on these just a touch. Some of them are slightly oblong, a couple thousand, so I'm gonna run a 5/8 drill bit down through those. And then we're gonna start getting these fixtured into here so that they're lined up. Okay, so I'll show you what we got going on here. I got 1, 2, 3 blocks with a 2-inch spacing between the plates, the 4-link plates, or the 3-link plates. And then I have 5/8 bolts holding sort of the position here with the table setting everything flat against the back datum. This here is gonna now sit in, this is where it mounts onto the frame. And we're gonna get this sort of tacked in and sort of spread exactly where we want it. And then we'll go ahead and seam weld that. Okay, so she's a little warm, but you can see here we got this one all done, seam welded inside and out. So we got the insides all done, as well as up in here. So she's gonna be plenty strong, and this will be the driver's side, obviously. So next up, let's get started on the passenger side. All right, so we're gonna call it a day. We got these made. I did not get a chance to make the upper 3-link bracket, but we got the lowers done. Pretty nice. I'm really happy with how they turned out. And this one's still a little toasty, but I did not forget to make one driver side and one passenger side. I almost tack welded the other side together as if it was a driver side. Which would have been a nightmare, but nope, we're good to go here. So next time when I come out here, which will still be this episode, I'm gonna get these made up, and then my buddy Calvin's gonna bend that piece of chromoly for me. We'll get those welded onto the chromoly, and then we'll start working on setting everything into the chassis. So if you wanna see how these fit, let me grab this driver's side one here. This is gonna mount up, you can see sort of the line here, but these are gonna fit up right up in here, and they'll get TIG welded in top and bottom, and that's gonna basically take all the lower 3-link loads on the chassis. So that's why this is all braced up in here. And then also here, this is where the cab, the perimeter section of the cab frame rail portion is going to mount up into there. So there's a fair amount of loads in this region, so we'll just keep plugging along and see if we can get some more time out this week and get this finished up. Alright, so we got these tigged on. They look pretty nice. I'm happy with the welds, top and bottom. So I got the, off camera, I put the driver's side on because running low on some memory and stuff, but yeah, these are fitted up nice. The frame is coming along pretty good. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna work on this upper cross beam and some risers here. But I ran into some trouble. I need plasma to cut out the risers, and you can't smell it, but it smells pretty hot in here. I'm gonna come over to the air compressor. It doesn't want to make a set point. This air compressor was bought in late March of this year. I guess actually 2019. It's less than a year old, and I'm pretty sure this compressor pump just took a shit because there's little pieces of silver flake in it, and it's making a nice tappity tap tap when you fire it up. So it smells like burnt popcorn in here, so that's neat. So now I gotta call Ingersoll Rand, which was supposed to be a quality compressor. That's why I bought this one and not like some Harbor Freight job, and see if I can get myself a replacement pump on warranty. And I need to do it fast because I got plasma cutter stuff to do. So neat. All right, well, we'll try to move it along. Well, this is the end of the episode. This is the compressor oil that's 1 month old. I just changed it with the recommended oil. And yeah, she's toasted. So we will not be completing the suspension on this until I get this compressor pump replaced. Hopefully Ingersoll Rand honors their warranty, because that compressor is less than a year old. So for this episode, we're done. But next episode, hopefully we can continue to get the 3-link stuff up in here. And yeah, it's not very good. So have a good night. Try to get some parts from Ingersoll and get this thing fixed. Buy American, they said. It's, you know, quality stuff.